All right, who's ready for another monthly reading wrap up? Because I don't know if I am. Hello everyone, it's Belle. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. And if you've come back, thank you so much. Teddy, I'm gonna need you to sit. I'm gonna need you to sit down. Good boy. We don't want any tap dancing in the background of this video. Today, you guys, it is officially time for our August reading wrap up. I can't believe already it is that time again. I feel like the year is just going. I always say that like as soon as it hits August, the year is pretty much over. It just flies. It'll be Christmas before we know it. But today, you guys, I do want to talk to you guys all about the books that I read in August. I read a total of 10 books. A bit iffy on the total part because you guys will see when we talk about my ratings. I had an interesting month. This might be a record-breaking month in terms of my ratings. Let's just say that. So I'm very excited. I've got a really nice mix of genres this month, some really exciting new favorites, some books that I didn't love. So anyway, I hope you guys are comfy and cozy because we are about to get right on into this video. Okay, so if you guys are new, you won't know this, but I do like to start my reading wrap-ups with a few statistics. It's just who I am, okay? So breaking down this month for some like top level statistics, I read 10 books. I'm about to tell you guys my ratings for these. Come here. You sit down. I know where to put him, that'll make him happy. Anyways, like I said, I did start 10 books this month. Did I finish all of them? You're gonna have to find out. I read a total of 3,075 pages, which is good. It's obviously, for 10 books, it's a little bit on the lower side, but obviously that's because, yeah, you'll see. My average rating was 3 stars. And my preferred format was paperback. So yeah, last month it was definitely more audiobooks, which I don't know. I still like listen to quite a few audiobooks, but definitely a lot more paperbacks this month. Then in terms of my genre breakdown, like I said to you guys, I did have a few, you know, different genres. So we read a total of 6 romance books, which is good. Romance, you guys know, is my primary genre. I feel like I have not really been in the mood to read romance lately, which is kind of crazy. So I'm going back to my roots. I'm happy with that. I read 1 dark romance, 1 romantasy, and 2 thrillers. So like I said, we had a nice little variety. And then in terms of my star ratings, this is where it gets interesting. So I had 1 5-star, yay, and I can't wait to tell you guys what that was. I had 2 4.75s, which also really great. I had 1 4.5 star, 2 4 stars, 1 3 star, and 3, you heard me, 3 DNFs, which yeah. We're gonna get into it. I feel like now as a reader, I really understand the type of books that I like, and I will know from like an early point in the book if I'm going to like it. So yeah, I'll know pretty early on in a book if it's a book that I have an interest in continuing on, and if I'm going to enjoy it. If I recognize that there are certain tropes and what have you in there that I know are just not going to be for me, then I'm going to put that book down. You know what I mean? Or in the instance of some of these books, something will happen in the book that makes me go, no, I can't do this anymore. Anyways, I think it's about time that we start talking about all the books that I read this month. So starting off this month, I actually read a thriller, and this is by an author that I've never read before, and he's like one of the biggest authors in the world and one of the biggest thriller authors in the world. And I actually read this for a book club that I am a part of in real life, and this is The Imperfect Murder. This is by James Patterson and JD Barker. Now, this is not a book that I would ever pick up. Do you know what I mean? Like if I went into a bookstore, I would never buy this book, which is so bizarre. But essentially, the premise of this book here is one night a police detective gets a phone call saying that there has been a murder at an apartment building. And when he gets there, the officers or the responding officers on the scene say that the situation is that this wife has been found standing over her husband's body. She is holding a weapon and she is asking for this particular detective in particular. Teddy, I'm gonna put you back on the floor. Stop licking. So that's sort of, here's what's gonna happen. So yeah, she's basically asking for this detective, and then as you slowly progress through the book, you start to become aware of the fact that the woman is actually a very famous thriller author, and she writes a lot of like true crime, thriller, murder mystery type of books. So it does definitely like raise a few eyebrows around whether or not this woman is actually guilty of murdering her husband. So that is the concept of this one here. Like I said, this is not a book that I would have gone and picked up. You guys know I love a thriller and I absolutely have been devouring them lately, but this book in particular is not one that I would go and pick up. However, I could not stop reading this book, which I really enjoyed. I really didn't know how I was going to feel because I thought, oh, is it going to be something really slow and grueling? But no, it really is one of those like popcorn thrillers where you just can't stop. You know when you get a bowl of popcorn and you're like, I can't stop eating it because it's so yummy. That's how this felt. It's definitely a book that you can binge super quickly. I will just say in the middle, there were a couple of pacing issues. Even though I said like it's super addictive, there were still pacing issues. But the way this book concluded and like the ending, it was so left field that I honestly just really enjoyed it. I think I ended up giving this book like a 4-star. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I was so impressed. Now, I've heard a few things from a few people saying that when James Patterson co-writes with someone, that really the person that's done the most of the work is the second author. So I'm hoping to give a bit more love to JD Barker, but this was honestly so good and I highly recommend. Will I read another James Patterson book? Look, maybe, who knows? I would definitely recommend it. Okay, up next, I read and finished the Bourbon Brothers series. You guys will know I sort of read the first 2 books in that series towards the end of July, and I was in the process of finishing the 3rd installment in the series, which is called Bourbon and Proof. This is the 3rd and final book in the Bourbon Brothers trilogy. If you guys haven't heard me talk about this series before, essentially it is a trilogy that is sort of almost like a romantic suspense series, I would say. The covers are just absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm going to have to insert the cover because for some reason my camera just does not like these covers. But anyway, as I said, this is the 3rd, I've said this about 4 times now. This is the 3rd book and final book in this trilogy. This does follow Hadley and Ace. So Ace is like our eldest Fox brother, and then Hadley is his brother's best friend. She is just like a wild card, speaks her mind, runs her mouth, just doesn't take anything. She's the owner of this bar, been a massive part of the previous 2 stories. And this book is actually a marriage of convenience, which I was so excited about once that plot line got introduced, because I think Ace and Hadley were 2 characters that we were seeing dancing around each other for the previous 2 books. And it was almost like a, when is this going to happen? It was very much these 2 that like take the mick out of each other. But essentially the lore around this story here is Hadley comes from a family within this town that is sort of notoriously known as being terrible people. She's sort of like disenfranchised herself. And obviously Lincoln is the eldest brother in this Fox family that runs the bourbon distillery. To help both Ace and Hadley out, they decide they're gonna go into a marriage of convenience, which I was so excited about. Guys, this book was so good. Such a strong conclusion to the series. It was so spicy, like crazy spicy. I think this one was like a 4 chili spice, which I rarely ever give romance books, but it was so good. I read them so fast. I wish there was more books in this series. I will say like the highlight of this book, honestly, like the epilogue. I've never seen a small town romance series have an epilogue narrated by like this particular kind of character, and it just made me cry. I really loved it. I think I did do this in a reading vlog at some point this month, but yeah, I just loved it. But this got a 4.75 stars from me, and again a 4 chili spice. Like guys, if you want to read something different, if you love like cowboy romance, small town romance, and you want to add a little bit of like that mystery suspense element to it, that flair, you will love this series. They are all on Kindle Unlimited, so I highly recommend picking them up. I'm so excited to talk about the next book that I read, you guys, because I think maybe we did do like a video of reading like new releases for a week or something like that. I'm so excited to talk about this book because genuinely I just think it is incredible and it's genius. I read one of my besties' books, and I read Breaking Point. This is by Mads Rafferty. This is Mads's debut romance novel, but it's also her first obviously sports romance. Now guys, here's the backstory on this book. So you guys will know Mads and I are friends in real life, and she sent me an arc of this, and I was like, girl, I'm gonna be so for real with you. I'm an ice hockey hater at the moment. If you guys have been following me for the last couple of months, I just feel like ice hockey is so rinse and repeat, copy paste. Everybody is writing the same story, the same tropes, the same dynamics. Like I just feel like I'm getting so bored of it, of all of the stuff that is getting published. So I told Mads when she sent it to me, I was like, girl, I'm gonna be so for real with you. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. I am not loving ice hockey at the moment. Like it's just not my thing. Like I'm really sorry. And she's like, bestie, like there is zero pressure to read it. I know you like an ice hockey hater right now. So I did decide to read this, and here's what it's about. So this book follows Bella and Grayson, okay? So Grayson is obviously a famous hockey player. He is currently dealing with the loss of a family member, and it has really taken a toll on himself, but also his career. He's turned to alcohol, and he is now like a massive party boy, getting into so much trouble, and you know, is in the media constantly, and is now in a position position where he is being threatened that he will lose his position within the team that he plays with if he does not sort his act out. And then you have Bella. Bella has just been fired from her job. She is an artist, and one night her and her best friend Layla are like applying for a bunch of jobs, and Layla must like sneakily apply for an assistant job because basically Bella's mother is very unwell. I won't tell you what is going on with her mother, but Bella is basically like the sole income provider so that she can look after her mother and pay for her medical bills and her hospital bills. So Bella is like pretty much in need of a job now, and like a good job. So she applies for this assistant position. She goes, does the interview, but the like interviewer won't really tell her who it is for. She ends up getting the job and she finds out that it is for Grayson. So she is now his personal assistant. Now, remember how I was mentioning that Grayson needs to tidy up his act a little bit? Essentially, within his management team, they say, I think what would be really good is if people started to see you as, you know, getting your head back on, that you're a family man, that you're getting yourself back into line, and that you really do care about A, yourself, but B, the game, and you're getting back to who you used to be. And they said maybe a PR relationship would be the perfect thing to do that. And he sort of says, look, if I do that, everybody's going to know it's fake because everyone knows it's a classic PR stunt. So he says, what if it's Bella? Because she already works for me. So this book is fake dating. This book is fake dating. Workplace, forced proximity, reverse grumpy sunshine. Guys, so I started reading this book and like, kid you not, without a word of a lie, just so you guys know, I'm not spitting this because Mads and I are friends. I could not stop reading this book. If you saw my reading vlog when I read this book, I literally took my Kindle with me on a walk outside in public, which I just think is like mental institution behavior. I could not stop reading this book, and I just need to like drone into you guys right now. Remember how I was saying I do not like ice hockey? This book is so not an ice hockey romance. It is, but the real hero of this story is the emotional elements. I can't explain to you guys, I've never read an ice hockey book like this before. The emotional storyline in this book will ruin your life, and that is why it sets this book apart from any other ice hockey romance that I've read before. Go and watch my vlog. I'll link it down below. I was a mess. I was in hysterics. This book, I would say in this series, because I know how it's sort of going to start to go, it is going to be a very emotional and heavy series. And I'm so excited for it because I feel like not many people or anybody has done that within the ice hockey genre. I'm so excited to see where this series goes, and I need you guys to read this because it is so different from anything. And I couldn't believe, like I said, that I gave an ice hockey book 5 stars. This is a genuine 5 stars. I never ever rate my friends' books just because they are my friends. I will never ever give 5 stars just because they're my friends. I think it's deceptive. It also like loses your credibility as a reviewer. So just so you guys know, I have given other friends' books lower ratings if they deserve lower ratings. This is a 5 star. This is like the easiest 5 star I've ever done. I was like literally like sick to my stomach reading this book because it was so beautiful. So please do yourselves a favor and go and get this. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It's out now. I can't wait for people to read this because it is phenomenal. Honestly, guys, this month was filled with so many amazing new releases, so I can't wait to talk about the next book that I read. It was probably my most anticipated release of the back end of this year, other than Burn of the Everflame whenever that decides to be announced. Please, Pen Cole, just give me that damn book. So I read Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mehra. Guys, I have no words in my vocabulary to describe how much I love this series. It is so reminiscent of like coming home. I know it sounds really lame, but like whenever I read another installment in this series, it's like I've like taken a little bit of a holiday and I'm coming home and I'm seeing my best friends and I get to spend time with them again. Because this is the 3rd book in this series, I can't really tell you the synopsis of it. If you haven't heard of the Assistant to the Villain series before, it essentially follows Evie Sage, who ends up getting hired by this villain and she becomes his assistant, and it basically follows all of the shenanigans and plots and twists and giggles of what is going on in this realm. It very often gets described as like Once Upon a Time meets The Office. Let me tell you my thoughts on this book here. The one thing that will get me about this series every single time is how effortlessly funny this series is. It is hilarious. I have a vivid memory. Again, I read this over my birthday weekend, and I think it might have been in a little bit of vlog footage from my new releases vlog. I vividly remember sitting in this Airbnb that we'd booked for the weekend. My friend Lucy and I were reading together. She was reading Assistant to the Villain, the first one, and I was reading Accomplice, and we would literally just sitting there in silence, and whenever there was a funny moment, the two of us are just in stitches, like laughing at our respective books, and we had to share what the line was that like made us laugh so hard because guys, I have no words for how much I love this series. Now, I will say this did not get a 5-star. There were definitely some issues, and my issues with it were that as the series is progressing, we are getting too many point of views. That's personally how I feel. I liked book 2 with the introduction of, I think, 2 other point of views, but by book 3, I do believe now we have potentially 5 or 6 point of views, and I do think it is getting a bit messy and clunky for a series or book series that, you know, they're quite small each installment. So I think that is one thing I will say about this. I definitely found myself somewhat like skimming in the last couple of chapters, like when it was these certain characters' point of views. I want more of Evie and I want more of the villain, and I can't say who else because that's sort of my main thing with this. I was very, very, very surprised by the turn that this book took because we definitely leveled up. I thought that maybe this series was going to stay YA. I do not believe that is the case now, but I'm very happy about it. So I ended up giving Accomplice to the Villain 4.5 stars and a 1 chili spice. Collapse all around, you guys. We really did finally get it on, which I'm really excited about. Basically need the next book like I need air to breathe. Hannah, please. I need it soon because she keeps ending on cliffhangers. I can't express to you guys how much I love this series. So if you have not started it yet, again, if you want to read a cozy comedic romantasy that will just make you laugh, like honestly laugh out loud, please read this series. Next up, you guys, I read my book club pick of the month, which if you guys aren't already and you want some information on that, I will link it all in the description. I do have a Patreon book club, so I'll put that down there. You guys actually wanted to read a summer themed thriller this month, and we ended up reading this book called Summer Rental. This is by Rectock Ross. This was such an interesting book and concept because when I was obviously looking for books to give you guys as options for the month, I saw in its synopsis that this is a sort of beautiful blend of something like Mean Girls meets Scream, like, you know, those type of movies. So like Mean Girls elements and the Scream movie, which are 2 of my favorite things. So essentially this book follows 4 or 5 best friends from high school, and they are sort of having a nice little 4th of July weekend together before they all go their separate ways and go to college. Basically, one of them books this like Airbnb, beautiful beach house. It was very cheap, and basically as they like are spending a couple of days in this town, a lot of people are sort of saying like, have you ever heard what happened in that house? There's been some weird stuff, blah, 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 blah. They are getting a tiny bit spooked out. And you know, as 4th of July does start to like loom over them, there are really bad weather warnings rolling in, and everyone's sort of saying, and all the authorities are saying, everybody should go home, everyone should leave, don't be in the town because the weather is going to get really bad and it's not going to be safe to actually be here. But of course, them being literal like high school kids are like, nah, we'll be fine. Like they're always exaggerating about these like weather warnings and stuff, like nothing's going to happen. And then you have this beautiful like stuck in the same house, isolated murder mystery type of vibe. Now, here's what I will say about this book. The first 60% of this book, I was flying through it. I was so engaged. I was locked in. It had everything that I love in, like I was saying, like a Scream movie where you have like the dynamics of the friendship groups and you're trying to figure out like the whodunit and you have the spooky moments and stuff like that. I was locked in. And then at around this point, I started to realize that this book was very reminiscent of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I have not watched the original, but I just recently watched the remake. And I will say, I genuinely believe that the back end of this book was literally the plot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. So for me, that kind of demoted the book a lot because that was one part of it, but also I feel like towards the end of the book, it just pretty much became like a bit of a high school caddy. Like we sort of lost sight of this mystery we were trying to uncover. We spent a lot of time with like this boyfriend and this girlfriend and these friends and why they're not friends and too many like, you know, semantics when I wanted to be having a few more scares and a few more like tension filled moments and things like that. So yeah, I ended up giving this book a 3-star because as I said, when the sort of, you know, plot twist was revealed, I was like, oh, this is literally the plot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. So if I hadn't watched that film, maybe this book would have been rated higher. Next up, we have a book that I have had on my shelf since the beginning of this year. And it was like a high, you know, priority, highly anticipated release because I loved the first book. I have Spiral by Bal Cabra. Now, you guys will know I read Collide last year and I absolutely loved that book. I think it was super strong, like 4.75 stars. I just couldn't stop saying good things about it. This was a time when I really did like ice hockey me because I enjoyed it and I had a really good time reading it. And this one I think got released in January of this year. And for some reason, I just like did not get around to reading it. But I put it on the TBR, many TBRs I should say this year, but I finally got around to it. This book here follows Sage and Elias, there we go. And this is also fake dating, which is kind of hilarious. She is a ballerina and he is obviously an ice hockey player. I'm pretty sure the concept of this one here is that one night she performs at like a charity gala and he is in the audience and they're almost doing like a bid on this person and you'll like win a date with them. So she's sitting in the audience watching, and then his teammate, who is like the protagonist of the first book, says like, hey, there's this really annoying girl here tonight who like is obsessed with him and will just, you know, spend all her money trying to win a date with him. She's like low-key a bit stalkery. He's like, I'll give you some money if you just bet on him so that he doesn't have to go on the date with her. So she is betting money, and she ends up winning the date with Elias, and they end up sort of speaking. And it's that similar sort of concept like I was saying with Breaking Point, where they are going to fake date in order to help each other's careers. She is really struggling to be seen in the professional ballet world because a lot of people, within the book at least, are only getting cast based on popularity, like social media popularity, which is insane and is definitely not how the real casting world goes, but that's how it was in this. And he, I guess, also needed a girlfriend. I can't remember why. So yeah, they fake date. So here is my thing with this. I actually was really loving this book for a while. And then again, if you guys saw that reading vlog, you will know why I DNF this book. First of all, a couple of things. The first thing that the red flag's starting to go up, there's a plot line in here about celibacy, and the male main character is celibate, okay? And when Missy Moo finds out that he is celibate, she is not happy. And I was like, if this becomes the main conflict between the couple for the whole book, I will not be happy. And it was. I think it's really lame. I think that you need to respect somebody's boundaries and like their wishes. And if that's going to be the main conflict, I don't like it. And then the kicker, the reason I DNF this book is when they do eventually get to it, she literally says something about his fingers. And then she said, and I'm off to space in my little rocket ship. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I literally DNF'd this book at like page 280 something. So like I read a lot of this book. I almost finished it. But you guys know that you're not enjoying a book and you're not wanting to read a book when you literally get to the stage where you're like, I don't care how this ends. And that's why I was like, why am I finishing this book? I don't care how this ends. I don't care if they end up together because I'm just not enjoying them. I don't like it, which is so disappointing because Collide was so strong. So yeah, this, like I said, was a DNF at what, like 84% or something like that. I think I wrote down 84% I DNF this book. So okay, next up, I read this book. It's called Cowgirls Do It Better Redemption. This is by Lila Dawes. I bought this for myself for my birthday off of Amazon because I saw the cover and I just thought it was absolutely gorgeous. I do believe it is the same artist that does the Bourbon Brothers, like I was showing you guys before, by Victoria Wilder. So I thought it was so cute. And before I start talking about this book, I just need you guys to know that yes, I did know the plot point that I'm upset about was going to be in it, but I guess I'm just a dum-dum. So basically this follows Katerina. And Katerina's lost both her parents, which is very sad. Her dad is the one that has just most recently passed away. And she is now in charge of her, I believe, 5 little sisters. Okay, she's got lots of sisters, all girls. She's now in charge of her sisters, but also this ranch. And basically, then you have this guy who, I think his name's Jack. He basically killed her mum because he was drink driving one night and was texting his friend. His friend was like, come over. He's like, I can't, I'm incredibly intoxicated. He's like, I'll just do it anyway. So he did indeed run her mother over and has been in prison for it for the last 10 years. So yeah, I knew this concept going in, that he was going to be the man that killed her mother. But you know, when I heard that on the back, I thought that it was going to be like a misunderstanding, you know, because on the back it literally says, I could never trust this man because he's the man who killed my mother. And I thought, it's going to be a misunderstanding. It's going to be like somebody has like framed him or something like that. No, he literally ran over her mother. He did indeed do that. He ran over her mother. Anyways, so we know that. And then basically one day Jack gets released from prison and he goes and knocks on her door and she wants to strangle him, which fair. We then proceed to find out that her father, the husband of the woman that he ran over, had been going to see him every single week in prison and they are now friends. And I just I understand we are reading fiction, but I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second. So you expect me to read this book with all of those red flags? No. So I did indeed DNF this one too at 50%. It was 2 for 2, baby, 2 for 2. I was like, no. I actually read this when I was going to Sydney like a couple of weeks ago. I read it on my Kindle. I read like half of it on the plane, and then I was like, no, this is terrible. Sorry, realistically, how are you ever going to be with the man who ran over your mother? I understand it was an accident, but like, you can't do that. I told you guys this month, I'm so sorry. Like I said, I read 10 books. Did I finish 10 books? No. No, I did not. But that's okay, because then we started the final vlog of August, which I was so excited about. It was reading like a Disney princess for a week, and I did Ariel to start us off because we just had summery vibes. Anyways, I started off with The Summer We Fell. This is by Elizabeth O'Rourke, and I've had this on my shelf for a really long time. I'm so glad that I finally read it. I will say, hate this cover. It's just not cute. So the concept of this one here is this is almost like a past, present, boyfriend's best friend, second chance, I would like to say. So in this book here, you are following, I've forgotten her name already, I'm really sorry, Luke and Juliet. So Juliet essentially has been abandoned by her family. She's sort of like in the foster system essentially, but she ends up being taken in by the town pastor, like the minister and his wife. And then, you know, as she's growing up, blah, 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 she ends up falling in love with their son. His name is Danny. And she sort of believes that she is going to spend the rest of her life sort of being with Danny and being within this family and sort of working in the field that they are in, until one summer, Danny is like a year older than her basically. Danny's now at college, and one summer he brings home his best friend Luke, and Luke is his opposite in every single way, and he just has a bit more bite to him, a bit more bark to him. He surfs, so I think they both surf, but anyways, he brings his best friend home, and basically Juliet's entire world is changed from that point on. You are getting past present in this, so that is the past, and in the present you are getting Juliet and Luke both coming back to this small town in the present day. I won't tell you why they are both coming back to the small town, but this book was so much more emotional and heavy than I thought it was going to be. Just given this cover, because it really looks like pretty and blue and pastel, I thought it was going to be a nice, like easy breezy summer romance, and there were elements of that. It definitely obviously had that summery feel, but this was again suspenseful. There was a mystery that we were trying to sort out, and it was very, 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 very sad. I highly recommend checking the trigger warnings before you read this book because it is incredibly heavy, but I loved it. I cried a lot. Highly recommend the audiobook. It is duet narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Samantha. I've forgotten her name, but she's the one that narrates Shield of Sparrows. I really did enjoy this. I will say the ending was, I don't know, not as entertaining as the rest of the book, but I still really loved it. I gave it a 4 star and a 2.5 chili spice. I actually am so intrigued to read the rest of this series because I believe there are probably 4. Yeah, there are 4 others. And I do have another book by Elizabeth O'Rourke called Devil Gets His Due or something like that. Then I read what I quite literally think now is my new all-time favorite summer romance book. It is Not Safe for Work. This is by Nisha J. Tooley. I don't think I've stopped talking about how excited I've been to read this book since I bought it. I'm still thinking about this book, and look at the smile on my face literally like after a week. I haven't read anything for the last week, but this book was just so stinking good. So this book here follows Trishara and Rafe. They work at the same company. So basically Rafe and Trishara are workplace rivals. They have never gotten along. He basically, like, when she was put onto his team, he's like, I don't want her to be on my team. I don't want to be around her. They just never really got on the right footing and didn't really build a friendship. So there's, you know, I've always had this weird tension between them at work. And basically how this book kicks off is one day a big work meeting is called to announce the winners of, I guess, the 2 recipients who are going to go to this workplace retreat in Hawaii. It's like a conference, and a bunch of other different businesses and companies are going to be there to represent each of these different engineering firms. And lo and behold, who are the 2 that get chosen? Trish and Rafe. If you just want another little kicker to add into the mix, the 2 of them are stuck sharing the honeymoon suite at this tropical vacation at this hotel where there is only 1 bed. So that is the concept, and it is incredible. One thing I will say about this book, the most like annotated part of this book are the funny lines. This book is so funny. You know how I was talking about that effortless comedy that I found in Accomplice to the Villain in that series? You get it in this. This book is so hilarious. I was laughing, I was highlighting. Literally my first like annotation is on page 3 of like the funny things that she was saying, the romance, you guys. Honestly, I was getting like the vibes and like the little like giddy feelings I got whilst reading Twisted Games randomly enough, like all those years ago. Like this guy reminded me a lot of Reese Larson, which is very strange. They're very different characters, but I guess the type of character that they ended up being, very reminiscent of that. This book was on track to being a 5-star read. I will say the one thing that bumped this book down is towards the end, because he's obviously, you know, brought around as being like a morally gray type of character. I kind of got a bit of whiplash because towards the end of the book, he suddenly became like a golden retriever, which it's okay to obviously like become a softer version of the character, but I think because it was such a dramatic shift, I was a bit like, that's not the character that we have learnt, you know, that he is for this whole book. So I actually had to demote it on that front because I think that was a bit weak, and the tiniest way that it wrapped up was a little bit weak. But when I was like looking back on this book and trying to rate it, I was like, I can't give it anything less than 4.75 because it was just so entertaining. It was so good. If you haven't picked this up yet, please put it on your summer TBR or just your romance TBR in general, because I loved it. I ended up giving it, like I said, 4.75 and I think another 2.5 chili spices. So guys, please go and pick this up because I just adored it. And the 10th and final book that I read this month was The Sea Witch. This is by Katie Roberts. When I say I read this book, I read 24 pages. I read like nothing. Actually, I read like 28 pages of this book. This was not good. The concept of this series apparently is it's called the Wicked Villain series, and I do have another book in this series on my shelf. It's called The Beast. They're all obviously like villain reimaginings or retellings of, you know, our favorite Disney stories. And I thought how on brand and how on theme for Ariel to do this book. The concept of this one here is you have Zuriel, who's obviously Ariel, and she loves Alaric. Eric. And she's like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go get Alaric back from Hades and I'm gonna go see the Sea Witch and make a deal with her. This literally happens in the first 28 pages, by the way. It's not a spoiler. She goes and sees the Sea Witch and the Sea Witch is like, yeah, I can't help you, but you know what? I can make you a deal. You're a virgin. So let's go see Hades. Let's see if he'll just like take you on and then we'll try to free Alaric. And I was like, okay, really? Like that's how we're playing this game? And then basically we get to the underworld where Hades has Eric, and then Ursula and Eric start getting it on. And I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. Ariel's about to lose her virginity to save this man, and you're gonna do the dirty with him. No. I'm all for a reimagining with Eric and Ursula. I don't know if you guys have read Hexed by Emily McIntyre. Mwah! Loved that so much. This was not it. This was not it. And I said no because they were literally banging 3 chapters in. I said, this is not for me, babes. This is not for me. So yeah, I said no, not happening. DNF 4% in, which I dare say is the quickest I have ever DNF'd a book in my life. Needless to say, I have been in a reading slump for the last week. Have not read a single page. I went to the beach yesterday to start Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I didn't read a single page. Nothing is appealing to me. Nothing is appealing to me. So please literally like send help because I don't want to read. I don't want to read at the moment. That book was so terrible that it's put me in a slump. So if you guys have any recommendations, please let a girl know. So yeah, that is everything that I read in August. Alrighty guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for sticking through all the way to the end if you did. I really, really appreciate it. What did you guys read in August? And also let me know what your favorite book that you read in August was. I obviously have to say again, Breaking Point was unmatched. Please let me know what your favorite book of the month was. As always, if you guys aren't already, you're more than welcome to follow me on my socials. I'll leave my handles on the screen and down in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you are hitting that notification bell that way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a lovely day or a lovely night, and I shall see you all next time. Bye.